I'm Duncan McLeod, and this is the TechCentral Show, brought to you today by MTN Business. To learn more about MTN Business, visit www.mtnbusiness.co.za, and we thank them for partnering with TechCentral, TCS, and for bringing you these great interviews. Now, quite by coincidence, we're chatting to an MTN executive today. His name is Bradwin Roper, and he's in charge of fintech and mobile money at MTN South Africa. And Bradwin's just announced that PayShap, the rapid payments platform developed by BankServe Africa, is coming to the MoMo platform on MTN. Bradwin, welcome. It's great to see you.
Thank you for having me. It's really good to be here again. Good to see you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bradwin. So tell us a bit about this announcement and what it entails exactly.
We are very excited that we have, South African Reserve Bank that is quite progressive in its Vision 2025. The SARB are talking about leveraging innovation for rapid real-time payments. They talk about interoperability, and what we're hoping to do is be, the first major institution that is actually bringing that vision to life. And so what we've done is, through a unique partnership with an open cloud payment service provider being Electrum, they're an incredible powerhouse in themselves, together with, a banking partner who enable, sort of commercial clients into PayShap. We're now able to bring the PayShap rapid payments technology to our user base, specifically now for funding on the MoMo wallet, and then in time to come as well on cash out on the MoMo platform as well. So we're very excited. I mean, we're the first technically non-bank participant into PayShap, which is, I think, exactly what rapid payments needs, is some kind of fintech impetus for adoption.
I was about to ask, you stated in your announcement that this is the first non-banking platform to engage with PayShap.
Yeah.
Just explain the significance of that and what it might mean for the development of the fintech ecosystem in South Africa.
Yeah. I mean, every major fintech has one issue to solve. How do you get money into your ecosystem? And the banks have been sitting on that advantage in South Africa they've done an incredible job, to be honest. If you think about in South Africa, why have fintechs sort of failed historically? That's because the banks have done an incredible job. So if you think of, e-wallet and cash send and all of these sort of local moving money within the country, the banks have done an incredible job. We sit in South Africa on card adoption by value sits at sort of 57%. And so the banks have really led in that regard. And consumers have trusted their money in banks. What PayShap allows is instant, rapid, within 60 seconds, real-time flow into an ecosystem like ourselves. So, you can still take your salary into a bank account if you so wish, but if you wish to save money by purchasing airtime, electricity, lotto, and all of these other features and benefits that we've been adding onto our platform, you can now fund that wallet seamlessly, real time, and depending on what your bank would charge you. But I mean, I think everyone is pretty much settled at, zero at under 100 Rand, pretty much free. So it's now free and easy and ubiquitous to fund your wallet, bank agnostic. And so every fintech's dream is to get, quick, real-time, cheap funding into your ecosystem. So this is a real big milestone for us. One stat I'll share with you is in our world, 85% of people that fund their MoMo wallet spend on platform. So, we're serving the underserved. Most South Africans today, 60% of South Africans to be exact, would take their money into a bank account and withdraw it in one foul swoop at an ATM. Whereas what we're seeing is people are putting money into our platform and spending on the platform. And so this for us is a massive unlock in getting customers onto the platform to enable them to spend on the platform. And any fintech would want this kind of capability.
Just give us the 1-minute elevator pitch. What is MTN MoMo? Why should consumers consider it?
We are looking to democratize access to financial services like never before. And we're also looking to save you on where you would spend traditionally. I mean, if you just bought airtime, electricity, and lotto on a bank app, That would cost you about 55 Rand in transaction fees. If you did all of those services on MoMo, they're free. So buy your airtime, electricity, lotto, and those sort of digital goods and services. You save 55 Rand a month, which is, a loaf of bread a week for your household if you did all of that on MoMo. And now you can fund that wallet for free as well and instantly.
And what about the top end of the market? People who are well banked, people who are, perhaps have multiple bank accounts, credit cards, etc., etc. Is there something in here for them as well, or is this really aimed at the unbanked or underbanked part of the market?
I mean, we see that 15% of South Africans are still unbanked, and obviously 60% of South Africans are underbanked. And that's where we're hoping to make the biggest dent on the fabric of society. And that's where, if you take, for example, our loan solution. So we've partnered with a company called Jumo, who are a titan in sort of lending on the continent. In our partnership, so we're the fastest growing Jumo integration. We integrated in 6 weeks, and we are also, the fastest growing since going live. 80% of customers that have taken out a loan from us, our average loan size is well under 1,000 Rand, which the banks don't do. But 80% of our customers have a thin profile, so they've never had a loan before, which means typically if they went to a formal bank, they would largely get declined. So 80% of the time we're saying yes on a small amount. And more importantly, we're also writing that back to the bureau. So all of a sudden, 80% of customers that have never had a loan before will start getting a credit record. And so we then wish that over time, you'll say that MoMo Quick Loan is the reason I now have a car, is the reason I now have a house, because, someone took a chance on me, granted me a loan, and I was able to build up a credit record, and now I can use credit to fund for an asset. So we're focusing for now on, unbanked and underbanked. But we do have, believe me when I say, we have pensioners that use our platform. We have, seasoned, like our license renewal capability, our remittance capability, our funeral plan. We have a family construct on funeral plans as well. And so we do see, your sort of more astute and affluent customers also making use of the platform.
How do you deal with credit risk issues?
So on the credit risk side, so you're talking about the lend?
The loans, yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating question. So Jumo are our partner here, and they use artificial intelligence. So they're consuming pieces of data in real time while you're doing the application. They're using alternative data sources, and they're able to predict, essentially affordability and eligibility, and they also manage you throughout the life cycle of the loan. And so we're able to do this because we're using the latest and greatest bits of technology. So think about, what ChatGPT has done for large language models. We're using that kind of capability to predict affordability. So we're not using stale data from a bureau, historical sort of banking type data. We're using real life data and using artificial intelligence to score. So that's essentially the beauty of a fintech is we don't have legacy architecture. We can plug in and make use of best in breed technology to be able to do this. What we do as Fintech South Africa is we scour for perfect partnerships. So I think traditionally industry in South Africa is stuck on perfect product. So I must own the customer and I must mine deep and I must build and I must architect. We're in a perfect partnership world. Let's go back to this PayShap. It's a 4-way win streak. So Electrum wins, MTN wins, Investec wins, and the customer wins. So we're able to find commercials, find a legal framework, and then essentially, how can we use best-in-breed technology? So Electrum, for example, have best-in-breed payments technology to be able to reduce our cost to serve by using best-in-breed technology. So that's how we play, is we're in the perfect partnership world where the consumer benefits as opposed to perfect product, own everything, lots of technical debt and legacy to be able to manage as well.
Tell me about your relationship with Investec. You're doing this PayShap initiative with Investec.
Yeah.
I take it MTN doesn't have its own banking license. Is that the reason for the Investec partnership?
Yeah, so the current, legally, we are bank sponsored by African Bank. So that's for deposit taking. We have a wonderful partnership with African Bank. So all of your deposits that sit on a MoMo wallet are backed by an institution called African Bank, and that is our banking partner. Mm-hmm. Legally, that is how any sort of major fintech plays. So they take accountability for that. And then what we're using, in order to get integrated into PayShap, you need a bank to be able to integrate you, for example, on the domain registration, and all of that.
This is in terms of the regulations.
Just in terms of the regulations. And so that's where Investec come in, is they will manage the domain registration and they're responsible and accountable for all of that. Mm-hmm. And they use that essentially, we use them through Electrum to move money into the MoMo wallet, which is then settled into African Bank. So It's quite a complex, and that's why in our world we are all about perfect partnerships, because we also have to very carefully orchestrate, how we manage all of our partnerships, both legally, ethically, leveraging technology, reconciliations, etc. So. Perfect partnerships is not easy. It's quite complex in its nature. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Would it not be easier to apply for your own banking license, or does that bring too many headaches with it?
No. We're actually really looking forward to, I think, post-elections, the Kofi bill.
What is that?
So it's a new piece of legislation that is hoping to make its way through Parliament, which has a host. I mean, it's still really undefined for yet. It hasn't been legally passed. But it will, in my opinion, enable a lot of fintech. So it'll hopefully enable, a little bit more open banking. It'll enable a lot more interoperability. It should reduce the cost to serve. As a fintech player, we're excited about it. Obviously, we have to get through elections and we have to figure out who, the new powers that may be, but we have a draft bill. It's making its way through the system, and we're very excited to see, where that lands. Obviously, it's a bit of a wait see, and I think that'll be from a catalyst perspective and a democratization of financial services. It is my wish that then becomes a legal mechanism and a bill that really enables, competition on the ground for financial inclusion.
Okay. And would that then mean, if that bill was enacted, that you would apply for a banking license or would no longer need to work with banking partners?
It technically would mean that, fintechs would be able to be regulated more directly by, the powers that be. Obviously, it comes with a lot more governance and reporting, which we're very comfortable to take on. But it should allow for, more direct, oversight by, the regulators in South Africa of fintechs directly. Mm-hmm. And it should encourage a more sort of open and financially inclusive financial system in South Africa.
Have you found, I've heard some criticism from other fintechs that while South Africa's financial sector is very well regulated, it's also very highly regulated, and that makes it difficult for startups in the fintech space to compete. Is that a fair criticism, do you think?
I don't find that I don't find that a detractor. No. My view on all of this is, there's a legal system, there's a framework. It then becomes your duty as a fintech leader to find ways to make it work within the framework. We haven't found, the regulators or the legal system in South Africa to be a hindrance in any way.
Okay.
We just find a way to innovate through that. And we believe that you should be able to find sort of best-in-breed technology to navigate through that. So if you think, for example, our registration process makes use of, all sorts of data points. It makes use of biometric data. We create a digital identity ID for you. And so we're using technology to help reduce the cost, for example, of registration. We're using digital payments now. We're using in PayShap a brand new payment system without legacy We're using Electrum as a cloud-based platform, which is on the grander scheme of things, super cheap. So, my position on this is, I think, and I'm a technologist at heart, so I like to think about how can I use technology to actually become even more compliant, because if you think about the digital world, there's a data crumb across everywhere. So, how do you architect all the way through to your database and your warehouse or whatever? So my view on this is, I think you could think differently as opposed to, just trying to fight the legal framework. Use technology, find a win-win-win-win scenario, business to business. Often it's business to business to business to consumer.
Sure.
And that's where I would invite, other fintech leaders to think at that business to business to business to consumer lens. People that get stuck in that paradigm are going, we have a business to consumer value proposition that works incredibly well. Now the regulation doesn't allow for this or whatever. So then innovate further up the line to find, okay, where's there a business that has solved for that? How would that commercial model work? Okay, where's there potentially another technology provider that can help stitch it all together? How do we solve for that? So you're either stuck in a business-to-business mindset or a business-to-consumer mindset. You got to think business-to-business, sometimes to business to consumer.
Okay. Let's come back to MoMo and PayShap then. You mentioned it's limited to funding a MoMo wallet at the moment from one of the other banks.
Yeah.
What are your plans for growing the PayShap offering on the MoMo platform?
Yeah. So, as mentioned to you, our data shows that our challenge for our consumer base is to get money in. Once money gets into the ecosystem, consumers are spending on the ecosystem. So 85% of money that comes in is spent on the ecosystem. For example, the number one features are prepaid across any network, both voice and data. We're network agnostic. Electricity, lotto, vouchers, etc. And we've built essentially a digital ecosystem of all of that. Where our members, MoMo sort of members benefit from is we charge zero fees. So we make a commission. We're essentially an online retailer, and that's how we monetize. But we don't charge you a fee, where traditional incumbents would charge you sort of 50 cents every single time you buy prepaid electricity. So if you're buying, either electricity or airtime.
Right.
So if you're buying for R2 or R5, which is what we see in sort of rural South Africa and smaller towns, there's a 50-cent fee on that. Every single time you're buying electricity, there's a R1 to R2 fee on that. Every time you're buying a food voucher, there's a fee on that. So our data shows, if you're sort of rural South Africa or a small town individual, just by buying your airtime, your electricity, your lotto, your voucher using MoMo, you'll save R55. So that's that's a loaf of bread almost a week that you're putting back into the house through those savings. And so our customers have been pining and begging us to say, please make it easier for me to get money into the ecosystem. We love your ecosystem. We want to spend on your ecosystem and save.
How do people typically get money into their MoMo wallets today?
At the moment, it's card to wallet. So you can do sort of a card to wallet funding. That's our number one mechanism. But we also have over 20,000 agents scattered across the country. So you can get money in through an agent or an agency as well. But because we're so sophisticated, so it's predominantly card to wallet and then sort of at an agent level, so you can do agent deposits and withdrawals as well. So those are the top two.
So someone takes a card to an agent and then tops it up that way?
No. So if I fund my wallet today...
through your bank?
Yeah. Okay. So I literally would then just follow, a card rail, and it follows the card processing route.
And there can be delays in that reflecting on the MoMo account?
No, that comes in real time as well.
It's real time as well. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that comes in real time as well. But if you think about it, think about consumer adoption. One of the things that, stifles e-commerce is, I now have to put my card details into this weird thing, and can I really trust that? What we love about PayShap is, and again, both BankServe and the SARB have been incredibly progressive, following on the footsteps of sort of India and Brazil and PIX, is your PayShap ID is your number. And so, I mean, let me show it to you. So, so if I went into PayShap, so I'd go in on my banking app, a trusted platform behind authentication, bank agnostic. I would then find PayShap on my banking app or on the bank's platform inside of registration.
I think show your phone to this camera over here.
So inside registration, so from your banking app, inside your bank app, you'd find PayShap. You'd then put in your number at MoMo. It'll then return back to you using PayShap, so MTN MoMo to confirm your PayShap ID. You then put in the amount. So let's say you just wanted to put in 5 Rand, which would be a tiny. Think about 5 Rand on a credit card seems a little bit strange, but all of a sudden 5 Rand funding your MoMo wallet to buy a quick 5 Rand data, which is free on MoMo, makes sense.
So do you primarily expect consumers to use PayShap to fund their own wallets?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Rather than third parties providing that, doing those transfers.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
And if you think about, that 5 Rand example, it doesn't make sense to a consumer then to fund a wallet on a credit card for 5 Rand. But now if I wanted to buy a quick data bundle for 5 Rand where I know it's free on MoMo, I can do that. And it's instant and it's free for my bank as well. And so, or to buy electricity. So we anticipate that there's going to be massive adoption in funding the wallet. Remember on MoMo as well, you can send money, and sending money from one MoMo user to another MoMo user is free. As well. So there is a mechanism for you to be able to send that money. And again,
I was going to ask, would you use PayShap to send money from MoMo to MoMo, but you don't really need to because that mechanism already exists.
It's free. Yeah, and it's free and it exists. And again, we have over 20,000 agents scattered across the country. So, you can, sort of the ability to send money is pretty much ubiquitous, and it's zero rated.
What do these agents look like, as a matter of interest? Are these spaza shops and
correct
that sort of thing?
Yeah, so we have different classifications of agents. So, we go. The thing about MTN, and this is where we're beautifully positioned inside MTN, is our ground game across the country. I spent September, November, and December traversing across the country, and I was astounded to see our ground game. We have presence, if you think about sort of prepaid recharges, like our ground game as MTN is phenomenal. We're in regions, we're in townships, we're in spazas, we're everywhere. The spaza economy is, 180 billion Rand. 80% of people in South Africa visit a spaza shop daily. That's 80% of people in South Africa visit a spaza shop daily. And that's where you'll find us. So typically you'd find a MoMo agent, because we're in the community, we're also trusted, right? So everyone knows, oh, you're my MoMo guy. So there's a trust element as well there.
Yes.
All of our agents carry some form of branding, a bib, a hat, or whatever as well. So we're easily identifiable. But the beauty of it is, our ground game, we just trust the ground game. People know, my neighbor, like 3 doors away, is like my MoMo guy. And there's a profit story on the agent as well, right? So you underestimate, like I can go and knock on my neighbor's door at like 10 o'clock at night, and essentially I've got like a teller available in real time. And so our ground game is unbelievable. And that's where we have the privilege of being a fintech inside the mighty MTN who have presence across the country.
Yes. Okay. So just coming back to the expanding the value proposition, it's funding in at the moment. What are your plans for allowing MoMo customers to use PayShap to pay other people?
Yeah.
Not on the MoMo infrastructure.
Yeah. we're a fintech, and so the main thing that customers have been asking for is money in, 100% on our roadmap as well, on money out. And we'll follow suit in terms of pricing. I mean, we're always going to be the cheapest. We're going to be way cheaper than any bank. And
Free?
Most likely. I mean, if I could choose a way, it would be free. The difficulty for us as a fintech is we're not a bank. And so it would be easy for a bank technically to say free because it's sitting on the bank's deposits. There are real costs involved. Electrum, we have to pay Electrum. We have to pay Investec for the fee. We pay our banking partner in African Bank for holding the deposit. So when we make it free, everything we make free, we bear the cost of, which I completely understand. In my mind, we're architecting towards a business case that says free in, free out. That's where we'd want to go. I'm quite certain that, if we can just out-engineer any sort of fraud mechanism as well. We've got 20,000 agents. 100%, it is my ambition to get to free on money out. Bearing in mind that MoMo to MoMo is free already, and what we're seeing is, customers sending it, our user base is just sending money on MoMo because the utility on MoMo is far superior and free as compared to any other fintech in South Africa. We've got funeral on there, international remittances, we've got loans, we've got our MoMo Mia Mall, which is a micro e-commerce site as well. So we're continuing to build utility on the platform. And in my mind, then, we should be able to get to sort of a free price point because, I'd rather just compete to keep you on platform and convince you to spend or live your best digital life mahala on MoMo as opposed to getting money out of it.
Yeah. Now, MTN operates not just in South Africa, but in markets across the African continent and parts of the Middle East as well. And you've launched MoMo services in most of and all of those markets.
Yeah.
Just tell me how the integration works between those markets. If someone's got a MoMo account sitting in Nigeria, for example, can they simply send money using that MoMo account to a South African MoMo account holder, or are there complications in that?
So we are remittance outbound enabled right now, and I'll tell you why. Again, we've partnered with a fintech called ClickSend now, so they hold the Adler license, and they're our technical remittance partner. But if you send, so if I can right now send money to Nigeria from MoMo to MoMo, that is instant and real time.
Wow.
I can send money from MoMo South Africa to, for example, Zambia. MoMo to MoMo is real time, and then that MoMo user in that country can make use of those benefits and spend, as my counterpart in Zambia has done. They go and scour, and I trust that their MoMo users can live their best digital life in that country. And the reason we've done that, again, we just follow the numbers, and as we're growing into both in and outbound, both on remittances and on MoMo, but we just follow customer needs and we follow the numbers. So South Africa is a $4 billion out market. We're a net send with very little money coming in. And so the customer need is to send. And what we've done is we've done that on a launch fee of sort of 4%. So if you think about incumbents, they're charging 10% on the remit. Ours is 4%, so you're sending $100, 104. Incumbents would be 108, and then the recipient would only get net of what the exchange rate might be.
I'm sure that's loaded a little bit as well sometimes by the banks.
Ours is super flat. We're all for transparency, and we're all for because we're using best in breed technology. We also we don't have legacy technical debt, and we also don't have legacy fees to protect. We're starting from zero. So, every cent we make is new.
Yes.
Every rand we make is new.
And your desire is to win market share, so you don't want to set the fees up here.
Yeah.
Rather set them as low as possible.
So we'd rather come in and allow users to adopt. I often say this. So, you know who has money in South Africa? Businesses. You know who doesn't have money in South Africa? Consumers. And I say this to my team is how can we find a business-to-business relationship that makes sense commercially so that we can save the consumer as much as possible in order to democratize access. So businesses in South Africa have money, consumers are stretched. So, how can we find a business-to-business relationship commercially that makes sense between the parties, leveraging best-in-breed technology to save the consumer as much as possible?
One of the reasons I was asking about international remittances on MoMo is that Bank South Africa announced just, I think, a few weeks ago that they were working on a new platform, the name of which I can't remember, that's similar to PayShap that allows international real-time payments to other African markets.
Yeah.
That platform that OpenServe, that Bank South Africa is developing, is there utility in that for MoMo, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. So again, it boils back down to the SARB 2025 vision, which speaks about interoperability, innovation, payments. And again, I'm very proud of our Reserve Bank for really taking charge of this and saying, we want to ensure that there's financial inclusion. I mean, obviously recognizing, 4 billion rands worth of remittances. And so our job then as a fintech provider is to scour the regulatory environment as well as the technological environment, and then to find a partnership that works to be able to do that. We want to reduce the cost to serve, leverage the best technology, make it as instant and real for real value derivement and utility on platforms. So best believe that if that then becomes a reality, we'll be on that like white on rice.
Okay, good. And then just lastly, before I let you go, Bradwin, in your announcement about the PayShap initiative, you stated that, or reference was made to what's happening in the Indian market, which is at the forefront of mobile payments in many respects around the world. What do you think the South African fintech market can learn from what's going on in India?
Such a beautiful use case. So, I mean, UPI in India, remember I mentioned we're sort of at a 56, 57% card payment rate in South Africa. Digital payments in India, 80% of them happen via UPI, which is the version of PayShap in India. So 80% of digital payments today are happening using PayShap. Another interesting point, a big driver of that was an integration of Jayo into PayShap as well for derivement of everything VAS related, airtime related. And so we needn't look further than just standing on the shoulders of two BRICS countries, India and Brazil. And I love what the SARB is doing is looking at that and, following suit. It is my wish then that in South Africa and as essentially BRICS nations, we will teach the world how to do real-time rapid payments. We will teach the world. I mean, we've already taught the world on mobile money. We in Africa account for over 50% of all mobile money wallets. So we've already dominated on a global stage. And I think people don't give us enough credit as Africans for that. But now in really this next evolution of, Web3, where my identity is my own and I control my data and how I manage my money is going to be digitized as well. I think between India, Brazil, and soon South Africa, watch this space. Like we will teach the world about digital payments, financial inclusion, and how to really democratize financial services right down to any corner of South Africa.
And does crypto have a role to play in any of this, in your view?
Absolutely. I mean, if you ask me, what are the best use cases for sort of blockchain and that type of technology, I think digital contracts. So, how do we engineer estates? How do we engineer ownership? If you think about properties in South Africa, like in Soweto, there's a home, but there are, subleases, in the backyard, there's a room or whatever. The banks don't know how to do that. Or in fact, the entire system doesn't know how to do that. So how can we use technology on the blockchain to sort of help digitize that contract enforcement?
Mm-hmm.
And how could I use technology, for example? So I've got my property. I've got 3 people living on my property. This person comes and goes. Imagine a world where you can digitally enforce that contract and digitally enforce that payment. And then if my property, if I then die and it's not, legally registered at a deeds office, how does this seamlessly, in my estate just pass on to, my next of kin or whatever? I think that's probably the biggest use case in property ownership, title ownership, digitally enforcement of contracts. I think that's where I'm hoping we can go.
Okay. And from a transactional perspective, does the Reserve Bank kind of frown on that sort of thing? We've seen retailers like Pick n Pay, for example, saying we'll accept Bitcoin at the point of sale now.
Uh-huh.
Is there any pressure or any interest from consumers that you're seeing to embrace any sort of crypto as a payment mechanism inside MoMo? Or is that something which perhaps much further in the future?
I think it's a little. The adoption in South Africa is far off.
Okay.
We are, as consumers in South Africa, trust is very important to us. And so the banks have done a very good job of building trust with consumers. We're doing a brilliant job now as MoMo in South Africa to ensure, trust using technology like biometrics and all these kinds of things, just to give you the assurance that your money is safe and secure, and the digital products and services that you buy from us are backed by super technology providers. So, for example, Jumo on the loan, Sanlam and Santam on insurance. And so we partner with trusted entities. I think there's a little bit of a way to go on, trusting Bitcoin and all of these things per se. I think if you build a utility on a use case, for example, on land ownership and rights ownership, regarding an asset transfer, I think that's where you're going to have to win. You're going to have to build a utility that makes sense at a consumer level.
Smart contracts rather
Smart contracts.
Transactional crypto.
Rather than selling crypto, this is how good crypto is, this is how good the blockchain is. Build a utility that makes sense to the consumer, to the underserved consumer. And I think that's how we're going to win, not just in South Africa, but in Africa.
Fascinating conversation. Bradwin Roper is CEO of fintech at MTN South Africa. Thanks so much for sharing your insights with TechCentral today. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.